guys, it's Quana back again with another review. Hope you guys are doing awesome. It's late here where I am. Just got finished watching This Is Us Season 6, Episode 13, entitled The Day of the Wedding. And a lot like Miguel said in this episode, I feel like I have a little bit of whiplash because it's all moving too fast. I feel like this episode was directly speaking to us, the fans of This Is Us, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why I think that's the case. But before we go into everything that happened on tonight's episode, all of the clues for the flash forwards and what's going to happen on the series, not season, guys, the series finale. Everything about that, before we go into all of that, do me a favor and I want you to come down here and I want you to click that little button that says subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please, please, please. I love getting a chance to talk to you guys about This Is Us, and I want you to be in on every single This Is Us episode drop that I have over here. So if you haven't subscribed already, what are you waiting on? As Randall would say, time is moving, and sometimes we can cause it to stand still for a little bit, but sometimes it moves fast, and so you wouldn't want to miss out on anything. Guys, this episode, it was a lot. It gave a lot, but yet it didn't in so many ways. I really kind of feel like Dan Fogelman is playing with this a little bit. We did see a wedding. It was not the bulk of the episode. We did get a lot of Rebecca. And by the way, let's go ahead and get this out the way before we even reach the 5-minute mark. Give Mandy Moore her things. Give this woman her Emmy. Give her her SAG award. She was phenomenal in this episode. Phenomenal. I mean, Mandy Moore has been solid throughout the entirety of the series, but I definitely think this was her strongest performance on the series so far. It was great. Nice subtle touches from Justin Hartley as Kevin. Really, really awesome. I feel like we didn't get to spend quite as much time with Kate and Phillip, and so they kind of faded into the background a little bit. Randall, I was going to go off on, but he saved himself. Randall always does, though, doesn't he? I mean, it's a part of why we love Randall, because every time he steps in it, he'll step in it, but then he'll take a moment, he'll self-reflect, and he'll dig himself up out of the trenches, and we love that for him. Beth and Madison, I love how this show finds little lighthearted ways to bring us joy amidst all the sorrow. And so in the present timeline, we got that with Madison and with Beth. And in the flash forwards, we got that with the kids. In the flashbacks, I mean, we got this with the kids. Because them kids had zero chill for Rebecca. They were coming for Rebecca on all cylinders. And it was hilarious. So let's go ahead and dig into everything that happened on tonight's episode. And it pretty much picks up right in the midst of the flash forwards that we've been seeing since last season with the wedding. We get a chance to see Phillip looking for Kate. We didn't know that's who he was looking for at the time, but he finds her. We get a chance to see the final outcome of Kevin's interaction with Madison. A lot of people were still kind of thinking that Madison and Kevin might have been a thing, even though we quite firmly have seen in the promos Elijah and Madison seemingly doing well, solid. And I think that she's pretty solid in her choice. And I don't think there's any going back for that. We get a chance to see that playful interaction with Nikki where he's gone out to go get stockings for Edie. I love that. I love their interaction. I wish that they're a couple who I've enjoyed getting to see them on screen together, and I wish that we got a chance to see more of them. But alas, time is moving very fast. Most importantly, we get introduced to what is the theme of, or one of the themes of this episode, which is that we get a chance to encounter Rebecca and Miguel as they're preparing. And this actually leads into most of the episode. So it actually kind of starts with the flashback of Rebecca getting ready to feed the kids, and the kids are licking milk out of their bowls. I have been there. with all 3 kids, I understand. And she's just out of it. She just doesn't seem to be fulfilled. She's just like kind of lost in her own mind. And we see her get to run her errands with kids in tow, and they go to the butcher, and the butcher boys refer to her as the ham lady. Devastating. I was like, dang, just everybody was coming for Rebecca in this episode. It was hilarious, but it was kind of sad at the same time. And so we finally get a chance to see her go to the salon, what is going to seemingly be her typical usual haircut. And she sees a People magazine with Princess Di on the cover, and she gets inspired to get herself a Princess Di haircut. Now I'm just going to go out and say this, okay? The haircut wasn't ugly, but it was not Princess Di. There was not near a layer in that haircut. It was just giving straight Peter Pan, straight He-Man, not a layer in sight. I was like, Princess Di had layers. She had layers. I remember. I was there. She had layers. It was gorgeous. But alas, Mandy, aka Rebecca, she can wear a whole lot of hairstyles and still be gorgeous. That takes us back into the wedding day, and the stylist is there to do her hair, and she doesn't want anyone doing her hair. She's getting lost in her mind now, and she's not quite aware of what the day is. And then we get Randall and Kevin who walk in the room, and we get to see, well, not even Randall and Kevin. Randall walks into the room to check on how things are going, to see if she's okay for the day, and she asks about Jack. She's waiting for Jack, and we get to see that decline. And Randall, this is obviously the first time he's encountering this, and he takes it to a shock to the system, and he behaves in a very Randall way, snooping through the medicines, trying to figure out a solution to a problem that he certainly cannot fix. Medicine hasn't fixed it yet. And it's disheartening because you can see, one, Miguel being slightly offended. He doesn't voice it, but you could see it in his face, like, I'm the one taking care of Rebecca. Trust me to tell you if there were something to tell you, but there's nothing. And then also on top of it, just the exhaustion you can kind of see in his face. I will say, though, that the playful banter between Miguel and Rebecca before she kind of really gets lost in her mind was so cute, so refreshing to see. I hope, if you haven't checked IMDb yet, there is an episode entitled Miguel. I'm going to talk about what I think that means for the fullness of the series a little bit later. But I will say this. I do think, or at least I hope, that we get more of Rebecca and Miguel's story, because we've really been skimped out on this throughout the whole entirety of the show. I don't think that they knew how much of a fan favorite Miguel was going to be, John Huertas, especially because early on into the series, so many people were like anti-Miguel, like, how dare you marry your best friend's wife? And now you get to see how much he cares for her, how careful he is with her, and it's so touching, and fans are clamoring for that backstory. Then we get our super sleuths for the night, snooping around Kevin's suite, trying to find things to, the pieces of the twins' attire that they need for the day. I was a little offended by Madison being upset that Kevin didn't take the time to get them all the way ready, especially because her husband is there and he's not a part of the wedding, and she and Kevin are both a part of the wedding, and he is the brother of the bride, so he's obviously going to be quite busy. So I was a little offended by that for a second, but I let it slide. It was just a quick moment. But they start seeing some women's things in the room, and their little spidey senses start tingling, and they put on their little super sleuth hats, and they decide they're going to find out who Kevin slept with. And throughout the rest of the night, them just bantering around that is just so lighthearted and refreshing. By the way, Beth looks amazing. That dress, the cut on that dress on her looks so good, so amazing. I mean, Madison looks cute as well. Their outfits fit their personalities, but Beth just looked stunning. 10 out of 10. So we get the reveal of, in the flashback, we get the reveal of Rebecca's Princess Di haircut. This is basically what the kids say to her after Jack comes home and sees her with the haircut. Randall says something along the lines of, I want old mom back. Kate says, don't worry, Mom, hair grows back fast. And then we have good old Kevin. Kevin gonna always speak his mind. Little Kevin was so refreshing because he just had no tact and he would just say whatever came to his mind. And so he runs up to her and says, I'm Captain Hook. And when she looks at Jack with the straight face and says, he's saying it because he thinks I look like Peter Pan, and Jack laughed, I about lost it. I don't even know if anything else was said. I just know I started laughing. I was getting tears in the corner of my eyes. That was like the funniest. I can't even think about it now. Like that was the funniest line of the night, hands down. The kids were just coming for her, and kids have no chill. They will tell you stuff like that all the time. We go back into the current timeline and we can kind of see, one, as the family is preparing to take these photos, Rebecca's regressing to the point where she thinks that Kevin is Jack. And you see where Kevin starts out at the end of the lineup for the photo, and he's on the opposite side of Beth, and he has to move to stand beside Rebecca to calm her down. And that's how we end up with Miguel not standing beside her. That moment was heart-wrenching because, one, you could kind of see the panic in her eyes, especially when Randall says, Jack's been gone for a long time, and she's panicking. The fear in her eyes. I mean, when I just say that she is killing this role. I mean, just amazing. The disappointment and the hurt in Miguel, but he's still trying to go along with it. Everyone's trying to be optimistic. And then it was cute, the little moment that they gave us. They gave us this moment with Kate, Phillip, Kevin, and Randall dealing with the aftermath of the pictures, kind of taking a breather. And Phillip is trying to cheer up the big three. And that was the type of moment that I think we needed to see from him. I will say again, I'm going to harp on the pacing of the show and the way that the story has chosen to include Phillip, because we got a chance to see Phillip at the beginning, who is this very pessimistic, kind of grumpy individual. And now he's trying to play optimistic. Not to say, obviously, anyone would do this for the new family that they're hoping to belong to, but we haven't seen that kind of growth from him. So it still feels like a little bit of a stretch, but I appreciated the attempt of trying to ground him with the big three. That was very, very touching. The other thing that was kind of unusual is during that photo, you have Kevin and Madison's twins, but you don't have Jack or Haley. Now, I was one who was wondering about that from the promo, and they are there eventually, like later on in the show, we see them there, but I don't know that they gave any excuse. There might have been a moment where sound cut out for me, where Kate and Phillip are talking when he goes to visit her to see her dress before the wedding, and he might have mentioned it then. Sound cut out for a second. So let me know in the comments below if they gave an excuse for why Jack and Haley weren't in those earlier photos, because that was really kind of distressing. Likewise, I don't recall anybody asking about Randall's girls or them mentioning Randall's girls. And Annie is around the age where she should be in high school still, like maybe a junior or a senior. Tess would be in college, and I would imagine that Deja would be in college. Deja would be maybe like a senior, or she graduated early maybe, and Tess would be like a freshman or a sophomore even in college. So it's really interesting that they weren't there. I don't know why, if it was just a scheduling conflict, but the fact that they didn't pass a note and come up with a quick line to explain that is just kind of interesting. An interesting choice that I thought was kind of weird. Again, I just love how optimistic. Sorry, my dog just came into the room and she scared me. How optimistic Phillip was trying to be for them. And then we go over to Randall and Phillip going to check on Rebecca and they're playing cards. Rebecca and Miguel are playing cards with Nikki and Edie. Another cute sequence, very playful, a chance to kind of see Rebecca in these moments where she's in and out of her lucidity. And Miguel, says to Randall, we can go ahead, because Randall is trying to talk to them about the performance. He doesn't think that maybe Rebecca should do it. And Miguel's like, let's go. Miguel and Randall head off for some wine tasting. And this is where you could kind of see Randall's controlling nature creep back in full force as he's asking Miguel about the medicine in their room. He sees some of the medicines for him. He's noticing Miguel's tremors, and I definitely think that we're leaning toward a Miguel possibly dying before Rebecca, from those clues alone. We've been all wondering where Miguel is in the flash forward, and in fact, this is us kind of tweeted as this is one of the answers, one of the questions that still need answering, and we still don't know. We don't know where he is in the flash forward, but I definitely think that this was probably a strong clue to what's going to happen. And I don't think that it's a red herring simply because you're talking about someone's health, and I see them doing some red herrings with some other things, but I don't see them doing it with this. So this leads me to believe that we're going to see a decline in Miguel, and perhaps Miguel won't be there physically, but maybe spiritually. I'm not ready to deal with that as a possibility, so we're going to move on beyond that. While they're gone, Rebecca is hanging out with Edie and Nikki and watching the Golden Girls, when lo and behold, who walks into the room but Jack. Guys, I don't even know if the gravity of that moment really hit me while it was happening. Like, not only is Rebecca having delusions of Kevin as Jack, but the way that, first of all, the POV of them depicting it so that we are seeing and witnessing Milo as Jack walking into the room, phenomenal directorial decision, phenomenal. But beyond that, this is a monumental moment because Milo's not been with adult Rebecca. Randall had some flashbacks, and so did Jack, I think, of Milo with the adult version. But this is the first time that Milo has been with an aged Rebecca. So this was just a monumental moment, and just so tragic and heartbreaking that she's having these moments where she's not remembering that he's gone. Interestingly, how they end up bridging it is that she is somewhat mindful of the time, and that she can see Randall and Kate as her kids. But it's interesting because she doesn't initially notice that Kevin is Kevin. She just sees him as Jack. They go for a walk, and we find out that he's had a rough night, and we don't know what that means. But at this point, I was starting to suspect that perhaps he didn't have a sexy time night, and that Beth and Madison are just completely off on the wrong scent, and that there's just a convenient response to why those things were in his room. And then we get the flashback of Rebecca kind of trying to explain to Jack why she made the decision to cut her hair. It's kind of interesting because Jack has a very infamous moment where he laughs initially about the Peter Pan comment, and then he goes into disciplinary mode, hey, everybody at the table, that's not how you talk to your mom, when he's literally laughing at the jokes as well. I mean, they were funny. I'm sorry, it was funny. But you definitely get to see Rebecca's kind of having a midlife crisis. I have been there, and it's a strange thing to go through that with a partner, and then they're not going through it with you at the same time, because whoever's going through it first, the other person cannot understand what you're going through until they've gone through it. Jack proves why he's Jack Pearson, though, because he does eventually kind of say that he's gone. He understands where she's coming from, the need for spontaneity, and Guys, he cut off his beard, and he had the porn stash, and they referenced it as a porn stash. Line of the night. He looked like Magnum PI. Line of the night. That and the Captain Hook thing. The comedic writers on staff, top notch. We find out Kevin's talking about the fact that he just feels lost romantically. And I'm going to come back to that before the end of the video. And Rebecca momentarily becomes lucid and sees him as Kevin. But in that moment, then she very quickly switches to where she's remembering Kevin as a Kevin who's just recently married Sophie. And telling Kevin, don't worry, you'll get things back together. This could be a clue, but we're going to get to that. It could be a clue. Miguel and Randall, when they come back to the resort and they're packing up these boxes of wine, you can see Miguel just going through caregiver burnout. Like, he just looks exhausted. And as he's shoveling and putting those boxes in the back of the car, or watching Randall put the boxes in the back of the car, he finally confronts Randall about how Randall wasn't necessary for him to call him on his shakes and to ask all these questions. And he basically has this moment with him where he's like, I just wanted a break. I just wanted an hour break from what's become his life, surely, of having to pretend like he's not married to Rebecca, probably pretending like Jack is coming. And it was heartbreaking. And in this way, we get the moment from the promo where he says that things are moving fast. And Randall's like, what? And he's like, everything. And I feel like this line of thinking with regards to the show and the idea of time and how time is moving in as it pertains to Rebecca is also meant for us, because everything in the show is being sped up in order to get to that conclusion. And our time with the show is coming to a close. We go back into the flashback with Randall, as always, trying to comfort Rebecca. He says that she looks like a pretty boy, and that's when, of course, Jack shaves off his beard, and he proposes that they go out in the middle of the week, no less, on a date. Y'all, that was big stuff. That was big stuff. Jack really is the MVP for that, okay? We finally get to the wedding. After all of this, we get to the wedding, and we finally get to see Jack Jr. and Haley. Where they've been hiding those kids, I don't know. And it does irritate me that they didn't even address like where they were. Where are Randall's kids? Like, no one said anything. The wedding goes off pretty much without a hitch. We can see that Kevin is looking back behind him, but he doesn't seem to be particularly like looking back at Sophie. He's just kind of looking back. They didn't really even linger too long on that. Again, it's all just a misdirection, in my opinion. We get to the toast. I felt so bad. Kevin gives his marriage speech from The Princess Bride, and it does not go over well at all. And he is completely upstaged by Philip's drunk Scottish uncle. So I just thought that part right there was hilarious. And then we get to Randall. This is where I always say, Randall, he gonna piss you off, but he's gonna recover at the end of the show. And he gives a very touching speech about just how fast time moves and wanting to linger in this perfect moment, and thanking Phillip for getting Kate to smile again and all of those things. I still feel like the Kate and Phillip thing feels a bit forced, but this was such a good setting to have that moment in. And Randall's speech was top tier. Definitely would want him at any function. He says this moment, and I wrote it down. It says, there's still love to be shared. And something like in moments to happen. And I think that message, that's why I said that message, I think, was for us. Like, there's still moments that we're going to get in these last few episodes of the show, even though time is going to move fast. We just have to hold in and to sit with it. It's just going to happen much faster. Those moments will still happen though. And then we finally get to Rebecca, the moment we've been waiting on, Rebecca getting a chance to sit down and play the piano. And she plays to the This Is Us theme song. And y'all, I lost it. I did cry. I did cry this episode. It was so beautiful. All we have is a forever now. Was so touching. Like I said, give Rebecca her Emmy, give her her SAG, give her her Golden Globe, give her whatever she wants. Mandy deserves all of the things. Rebecca does remember this song and she's able to play it, and they have this really nice moment with her where she's able to latch on to her memories. We get to the end of the wedding and everyone's dancing, having a good time. We get to see Beth and Randall interact, and he talks about, first of all, Beth, yes, his speech was sexy and depressing. Perfect. She got it. Beth is all of us, right? And then finally we get to see Kevin kind of saying to them, like, you guys have been staring at me weird all night long. What's going on? They don't say what they were thinking, but then we get to find out a little bit about his night, and perhaps his night having to do with 3 different ladies: Cassidy, Sophie, and this mysterious wedding singer, because it's always the wedding singer. And who else is the wedding singer? No other than Quinn from Scandal, Katie Lowes. I was like, Katie Lowes, is that you? And I thought that I saw her earlier in the show, but I was like, nah, she just looks like Katie Lowes. It was Katie Lowes. This is like the 2nd or 3rd Scandal or Shondaland crossover that we've gotten on the show. I'm here for it. I'm here for Katie. Guys, it was a good episode. I did a breakdown and a kind of like theory video that I dropped earlier today. And in that, I think, and what I theorize is that Kevin's not going to end up with any of the women. Now, I do think right now they're heavily pitching this idea of one of these 3 women is going to be it. But I think it's possible that they won't be it right away. And I'm going to tell you why. I didn't mention this in the theory video, but I went back and I looked at the flash forward or not the flash forward, but the end of season 4, the end of season 4, or like the midpoint of season 4, when Madison is pregnant. And this is like right before COVID, and she's pregnant, and she's telling Kevin that she's pregnant with twins. And he says something to her. He says something along the lines of, my kid will be my one true love. And then she says, your kids, it's twins. And I do think that perhaps that ring, maybe he is married, but maybe it will take some time to get there. Maybe it will be one of the 3, or maybe it won't be no one, and maybe he'll be wearing Jack's ring, and he will just be a great dad. I kind of feel like, again, like everyone in the show doesn't have to have like a romantic happily ever after, and Kevin still is searching so hard for it, to the point where it feels like he hasn't grown enough to learn that he doesn't need that love will find him, and that he keeps trying to force it. And so for that reason, I kind of hope that he, gets to spend some time, and maybe it takes a while for him to find it. Maybe it doesn't happen in the years before Rebecca's death. Maybe it happens for him afterward. So lots of questions. We still don't know where the heck Randall's girls are. We don't know why Jack and Haley weren't in those earlier shots, but I do strongly think that Miguel is going to be dead by the end of the show. I'm 50-50 on the whole Kevin thing as of right now, but I do still think it's a possibility that he's just wearing the ring out of like connection to Jack, and perhaps he's had to kind of like portray Jack for Rebecca all this time. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else that we're not getting. I mean, I feel like we got Kate and Phillip's storyline. It is what it is. Randall is obviously going to be Senator Pearson, and everything is kind of wrapped up there. I guess we don't know just like the flash forward stuff of what's going to happen with all of the kids, but I don't think that's been something we've been like diehard needing to see. I think if we get it, we get it, and if we don't, I'm okay with that. But I do think it was a good episode. A lot of emotion in that. I do feel like if this is not the episode that gets Mandy her Emmy, and she tweeted that the penultimate episode made her nauseous, which makes me think we're in for a doozy, guys. So let me know down below in the comments what you thought about tonight's episode. And do you think Kevin's going to choose Sophie? Do you think he's going to choose Cassidy? Do you think he's going to choose the wedding singer, aka Quinn from Scandal? Or is he going to choose himself? I guess we'll have to wait till next week. So thank you guys so much for dropping by. I will see you guys next week. Don't forget to hit that like button and share this video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Toodles!